Hello friends, welcome back to Hope Arts Library. My name is Emily and today we are going to be talking about my mild to severe obsession with cookbooks. It's not every cookbook. I do have specific cookbooks that I like and that I have turned into a very small, very humble collection. And I'm not going to be sharing every cookbook with you today because I think that would get
boring.
But I will be sharing with you my favorites and the ones that stand out to me the most and that I recommend the most. How is there so much lipstick already all through this? I don't really know how to start this video because I don't think I've ever seen anybody do it before. Then again, I've never looked. I'm sure there are many cookbook collection videos. But I'm gonna start it with the two that I got the most recently that I think you're gonna like the most, and that were the most exciting to me when I found them. And that is Jane Austen's Table by Robert Tousley Anderson. I think I pronounced his middle name correctly. I hope so. And these are basically just recipes inspired by the works of Jane Austen. And on the quote, on the back, it has a quote, "Good apple pies are a considerable part of our domestic happiness." And that is a Jane Austen quote. I'd love to know when she said that. But it doesn't only go through like foods that may have been mentioned in her books. It also has, for instance, in the stuffed tomatoes, it goes into one of her letters that she wrote to her sister Cassandra in 1813. She asked if her sister Cassandra had any tomatoes, and that her and her niece Fanny ate them every day. I can only assume their garden was full of them and they didn't want them to go bad, so they would eat them every day. Now, I am not a tomato person, but I am excited to try the recipes out of that, but I'm also so excited to share this cookbook with you guys. This is Pride and Prejudice, and it also has recipes from Martha Stewart. So this is the book, Pride and Prejudice. And on each new chapter, it has a very cutely decorated little cookie. And there are pages that have a cookie, and they've printed out, "What are men to rocks and mountains?" They print out quotes with the cookie. I think that's so cute. And then scattered throughout the book, oh, look at that. That's a cookie with Rosings Park on it. How cool is that? Are you kidding me? But there are, scattered throughout, there are recipes. So this one is lemon madeleines, or madeleines, pardon me. But they have recipes scattered all throughout this. It's so cute. It's just got like these adorable designs. This cookie says, "I would rather be paid the compliment of being believed sincere." Oh my gosh, I love it so much. You should know ahead of time, I have a deep love and respect for Jane Austen and her works. I love Pride and Prejudice. I love Emma and I love Pride and Prejudice probably the same amount. And I'm telling you, if Martha Stewart herself came out with a version of this for every one of Jane Austen's books, yes, including Lady Susan, I would buy it. Do you realize how much money you could make, Martha Stewart and Penguin Publishing? You could take all of my money on this idea. You have no idea the power that you hold in your hand. This was only $25. If it had been $40, I still would have bought it. And I bought it new, and I didn't have to. I know I could have gotten it online. I probably could have got it on Thrift Books for like $5. But I went to Barnes & Noble and I saw it, so I had to buy it. Anyway, those are my most recent purchases. The rest, I didn't buy most of these. I got them at lending libraries, and I love lending libraries. This is the thing that I'm the most excited to find in lending libraries. Obviously, I like looking for, oh, you probably know them as little free libraries, but I call them lending libraries. I always thought that's what they were called. I don't know why I thought that, and now I know that that's not what they're called. But whenever I go to lending libraries, I look for Christian books, of course, but I'm always so excited when I see, especially the old Better Homes and Gardens cookbooks. I love those things. When I say older cookbooks, I have cookbooks from like the 1990s, and I was born in the 90s, all the way back to a handwritten cookbook that I believe the author, or the compiler rather, was born in the 1800s, the late 1800s. So I've got a wide range. I pretty much like anything that was created before like the 2000s. Okay. The next cookbook I wanted to show you was the Joy of Gardening cookbook. This one is really helpful to me because we do have a pretty decent sized garden outside. Now, we did not utilize it very well this year, and by that I mean we let the weeds do whatever they wanted to do. So that garden belongs to the weeds at the moment, but we were still able to get a lot of tomatoes, and I made roasted tomatoes. We were able to get black beans, zucchini, pumpkins, and acorn squash, all sorts of fun stuff. And I got lots of herbs and stuff. But this is really fun because you can choose what food you've grown. So, you know, corn, cauliflower, carrots, cabbage, and then you can turn to that page. So this one is broccoli, and it will give you recipes for your broccoli. Like, I think that's really awesome because sometimes you have an abundance of tomatoes because your dad planted so many tomato plants and now you don't know what to do with them all. So you can just flip to the tomato page and find a whole bunch of recipes for Hungarian goulash. And find a whole bunch of recipes for tomatoes, which is great because, again, I desperately need them. But usually, if we have cherry tomatoes, I just roast those. I roast those at like 250 for like 3 hours in the oven with garlic, olive oil, salt, and, you know, some like oregano and stuff, Italian seasonings. And then you put it in a jar and you cover them with olive oil. And you can put those bad boys in the fridge, and the olive oil will solidify around them and turn like a yellow color. But as soon as you take them out and run the jar under warm water, it will liquefy that again, and you have delicious roasted tomatoes to go on your hummus toast. Because Dunkin' Donuts got you addicted to tomato hummus toast, and now you make it all the time. It's gonna ruin your diet, Emily. Anyway, the next one I just wanted to show you because I think it's really funny. And that's also the reason that I bought it at, I believe, oh, Ollie's. I got it at Ollie's. I know that because there's an Ollie's sticker on the back. It is Sweet Potato Love, and it is just a whole cookbook just about sweet potatoes and what you can do with them. And I feel contractually obligated to tell you that I don't like sweet potatoes. I feel like it would be wrong for me to make it seem like
I bought this because I deeply loved sweet potatoes. Excuse the guinea pigs. When in reality, I don't like sweet potatoes, but they're really good for you. So I want to eat more sweet potatoes. I just wish they didn't taste that way. I just don't like them. This one though is a sweet potato pound cake with lemon glaze. That sounds pretty good, but it's also a cake, so sweet potato cake donuts. Is there like a healthy recipe in here for anything, or supper of chicken and vegetables? And I'm noticing a lot of sweet potato, so that's, I guess, I just wanted to share that one with you because I think it's funny. Okay, these ones I think are very special. These ones are pretty local, and they're just compilations that like churches and businesses made in like the 70s, I believe, of local people would just send in their recipes, and it's so cute. Like this one is a recipe from Mrs. Jack Umstead. I also love, and I wish more women did this. I love that they go by their husband's name, Mrs. and then their husband's name. I think that's so cute. Mrs. Herbert Bridges Jr. That's so cute. Some of them went by their own names. So we have Mrs. Joanne Greenwood. And it tells us where they're from as well. And I think that is so sweet. So I'm in Ohio, and I don't know where this book was compiled at, because there are people in here from Ohio, from Illinois. There's like Nora Rock. This is not Mrs. This is just Nora Rock from Akron, Ohio. Akron is like 2 hours away, but I really like this one. I think this was in the 70s. I'm not sure when this one is from, because it does not say. Hold on, maybe it does. Oh, wow. Dedicated to all of New Salem's ministers. So the New Salem Presbyterian 200th anniversary of their church. Okay, so I'm gonna guess that this was in 1997 is when this one was compiled. But we have a list of all of the ministers at, I believe, just at this church from 1796. How did they keep track of that? I would love to know. This one as well, so cute. I love that it has their names. I love that it tells us who wrote these recipes, because if this was in 1997, and I imagine some of these people were older, that a lot of these people are not around anymore. Nettie M. Chafee. She provided a few recipes. She provided pineapple cheese balls and regular cheese balls. Thank you, Nettie. That's so nice of you. I think I recognize that church, interestingly enough, and I don't think it is operational anymore. But I could be wrong. Do not hold me on that. I have no idea. Anyway, these two. Okay. I just have a couple more that I want to show you. This one that I'm going to show you is a whole set. So I'm going to take a drink of my probiotic yogurt drink, which is just an adult Danimal. Delish. These ones I think are probably my favorite of my entire collection. Of course, I'm very fond of the Jane Austen ones, but these ones are so useful. So this is a whole set published for Women's Day. It is the Encyclopedia of Cookery. And each volume, there's 12 volumes here, and I got all of these, this whole set, for $6 at my library book sale. And I think you can get them on eBay for a very similar price. And I highly recommend, if you are a young lady who wants to learn how to cook, or even a young gentleman who wants to learn how to cook, I'll just open volume 1 to show you. So volume 1 is A through BEA. So it goes through the whole alphabet. And it's so cool. So you find the ingredient that you want to use, like acorn squash. I love acorn squash, but page 6 will tell you about acorn squash. Page 128, avocado. There's bacon. So it's not just about recipes in this book, and that's what I love about it so much. In this whole collection, it's not just about recipes. It does have recipes, obviously. Every page has recipes in it, but it literally breaks it down and teaches you different cooking methods and what different cooking terms mean. So in the baking section, it talks about how they used to cook, or how they used to bake in colonial America. It talks about how they cooked way before that. It talks about how we cook now. It has a guide for up-to-date baking. It has a section called It Pays to Know Your Oven, which basically tells you about oven temperature and how to get your oven up to temperature, and how important it is to make sure that it's already up to temperature before you start baking. And then I also wanted to show you what I meant when I said that it explains different types of baking terminology. So here it has al dente, and it says, literally, this Italian term means to the tooth. It is used to describe foods cooked so that they are still firm to the bite or taste, or in other words, not overcooked. Al dente is used for pasta, rice, and vegetables. So I think that's super cool. It really helps you understand different baking terminology. And another cool thing it does is, like for acorn squash here, it tells you what it is. So it's a fall or winter vegetable that belongs to the gourd family, and then it sort of goes in to describe it. It talks about when it's available, and a purchasing guide, which I think is really, really cool. It tells you how to know whenever you're out buying these products. How do you know when they're ready to be, like when they're ripe? And I think that is really, really awesome that it does that. So I seriously recommend this entire encyclopedia series to anyone who wants to learn how to cook, anyone who wants to learn how to bake, especially young women who want to be, you know, homemakers one day. I seriously recommend this series. I love it. It is one of my favorite things that I have on my shelves. So the final thing that we have to share today is this very old, very falling apart little ledger that I believe the author, or not the author, but the person who compiled these recipes and the person who wrote a lot of these recipes, I believe she was born in the late 1800s. And I have my reasons for thinking that, mostly based on the articles that are in here, because she does cut out a lot of articles. And I think this is such a wildly fascinating book. So for instance, this one, be very careful with this whole thing. All the paper in here is so flimsy that it will fall apart, or it will like crumble and break at the heart, like the slightest wrong touch. So this one is from a newspaper, and it is good for the kiddies, soft ginger cookies, Mrs. Mary Morton's daily tested recipes. And then it has a recipe for soft ginger cookies, and this recipe yields 5 dozen cookies. Who's making 5 dozen soft gingerbread cookies? I don't know. I don't know why she would have needed that many, but it was a different time. I don't know. Maybe they were doing it for something. But because these pages are so like worn and falling apart, my plan is to either transcribe them into another new book and then add more recipes to it. But of course I want to label these ones so that I know whenever I write them in those other books, I want to label them so that I know where they came from. Or I want to photocopy them. But because of what poor shape they're in, I don't think photocopying is an option. I think you can only just read them with the naked eye. I fear that if I tried to heighten like the saturation or anything on them, I fear that it would just pick up the other side and make it even more hard to read because the pages are so thin. This is really interesting. She has cut out and put in the temple rebuilt by Herod. Herod the Great in the Bible. I think that is really interesting. I think it's really interesting to see that because I still have that in some of my current modern day Bibles. This one is for soft gingerbread, and the other side is for, I believe, corn powder, which I can only assume is like cornmeal. Ooh. Be very careful with this stuff because it's all so delicate. This side is for donuts and the other side is for sponge drops. That sounds delightful. Spice cake. I really like when she would cut these pieces out from newspapers and keep them in there. This one is a remedy for colic. So this was like her like go-to book. She put all of her home stuff in here, all of her homemaker stuff in here. And I think that is so wonderful, and I want to keep all this stuff and be very gentle with it and put it all in a new book where nothing bad can happen to it and it'll all be safe. And then I'll put these in gosh, I kind of want to put them in like vacuum sealed bags so that nothing happens to them. But anyway, I don't know if this video was interesting to anybody other than myself. If you've made it this far, thank you for being interested in my weird little cookbook collection. I really, really love older cookbooks especially. I love preserving older recipes. If you have older relatives who cook, older grandmas, stuff like that, I really recommend you go to them and you ask them to write down these recipes that they have because they're not always going to be around. And that kind of stuff is just going to be gone with the generations and we'll miss it. And I think it's really important culturally and just in your own family's culture to keep this sort of stuff and hold on to the old recipes and write them down and pass them on to the next generation. I think it's a really awesome way. I think the table is where people gather, and I think it's really awesome to I think it's a really awesome way to bring people together and bring them in tighter into your family. So anyway, that was pretty much all I had to talk about today. I hope it wasn't too boring. And I will see you all again here at Hobart's Library. I hope you have a wonderful day.